Hello, welcome to Thirstime. In this episode, I'm reviewing the film Perfect Days starring Hoji Yakusho. I hope I got that correct. And it's made by a German filmmaker, Wim Wenders. I'm really loving how we're able to, intermesh culturally where we also had The Zone of Interest, which was a Polish film made by British filmmakers. And in this film as well, we have the German director creating a Japanese film. I like that mix. What can I say about this film? Firstly, the casting was perfect. Hoji Yakusho is the perfect actor for this film. So well cast. His face, he has kindness, wisdom. He looks a bit like an artist, a bit of a thinker. He just feels like a really safe bet, a sensitive person. And that was a perfect casting for this film. I'm watching the film and I'm thinking, okay, granted, this is in a fantastic part of Tokyo, in a very old part. Granted, he lives in perhaps the world's best metropolis. It's definitely the world's biggest metropolis. Without a doubt, I think it's the world's best metropolis. But aside from that luck or good fortune, he is a toilet cleaner. And you go through watching the film, and I will try not to speak too much about what the film's about. So I'll be a bit more cryptic, but you go through the film as it begins and you're thinking, this guy has the perfect life. He, you see a contrast. There's a man in business attire that, stumbles in and stumbles out of the toilet. Obviously, he's been drinking too much and he's not aware of his surroundings. Kind of miserable, really, because he's got to go to work and he's smashed. Sounds pretty stressful. Or alternatively, there's another office worker on a park bench that just looks miserable. Whereas here you have the toilet cleaner that is, has the time to smell the roses. In his case, he's looking to the sky, looking at the seasons, looking at the leaves rustling in the wind. And that made me think, like, yeah, who is happier? Is it the ones that are trying to fight and climb that ladder and stay up on the ladder, or that other one that is, doing a job that they're completely capable of and just taking pride in it and keeping things simple and I guess living simply, like having a simple car or eating simply and, not trying to fight for luxury items. I mean, that in itself is a really good message. And yeah, going through the film thinking, this is the perfect life. But interestingly, the film uncovers more as you go through the film, and I won't go into it, but there are a few interactions, and you learn that stuff in life has happened to him. He actually keeps himself safe in this bubble. He keeps himself safe in a bubble where it's just, man is, the king of nature. And he just observes life. And, what better place than a city like Tokyo with so many distractions, so much old and new. And, it really does have an old population and many traditional things out there. I mean, they still have cassette stores that are in demand. They still have film photo developers, really analog things that are, there's still a market for that over there. It hasn't been outdated because I believe I think in Japan, they have probably a large enough population that they can have the old and the new still coexisting alongside each other, which is really cool and I think true. I mean, when I was living there, geez, almost 20 years ago. No, it was 20 years ago. Geez. When I was living there 20 years ago, I had like a deposit book and I would put it in the machine, like the ATM machine, and I would write my entries. Back in Australia, the retired people used to be able to have their passbook, we would call it. ATMs could dispense coins. I remember once, like, I had, I don't know, like 583 yen, and I was able to, I think that's like $5. But whatever the case is, I was able to withdraw it down to the cent, which I thought was amazing and cool that they still did that. I think the conglomerate city of Tokyo is like 30 plus million people. This major machine that is still incredibly functional and smooth and on time. The amazing clockwork of a city like Tokyo, how it all just ticks and works together. What better place to live in your own little bubble, in your own little world, just observing the things around you and, yeah, like living humbly, living modestly, coexisting. I think, in the Western world, or at least in Australia, people are like, you're either going to be a part of it or you're going to try and escape from it. So you're either going to try and get that money and climb the ladder and go to the gym, get the tats, take the holidays, have the car, etc., etc. Or you're like going completely off the grid in a caravan around nothing. Whereas this character, Hiroyama, I think, is drinking shochu alcohol, just going about his humble life without trying to be perfect. It's an interesting film because, in many ways, it's like watching Groundhog Day. You're watching someone's daily routine for the most part of the film. The character is not one who talks a lot, so it's very much observational. It's very much you tell yourself the story. It's extremely Japanese from how I see it, where it's about Zen, and a philosophy of how to live life, minimalism, keeping it simply, not being reactive, being humble, not getting too involved. Like, for example, there's one character that's very, very talkative and has always got dramas, but the main character, Hiroyama-san, is not getting involved. So he's kind of like the model citizen. But what's interesting is I feel like there's been some trauma, so something bad's happened to him, that he's shut himself off in that bubble, living inside his own bubble, outside of society's, mores and expectations of doing your best. In there lies the perfect life, and that, is it a paradox? Outside of this world is the way to live. Whereas if everything had gone well for him in life and he didn't have what is alluded to as a potential trauma, perhaps he'd just be like a generic everybody else and maybe not so magical and special. So he's definitely a character that other people are drawn to. Yeah, it's a beautiful, I don't know if the word is elegy. It's like a love letter to Tokyo for sure, and just solidifies how much I would love to be an eccentric in Tokyo for the rest of my years. That to me would be happiness. That brings us to the end of my review. I am so glad I saw this film. I'm so glad I saw it with someone that appreciates it. And yeah, visually, I just think it's beautiful. Let me know what you think, and I hope to see you in the next video.